To select an O-ring, the first thing you want to do is you want to measure the inside diameter. You don't want to compress the O-ring or stretch it. And then record the inside diameter number. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to measure the diameter of the material itself without compressing it, and then record the number. In this case, I've got 3 O-rings for example. This one's split, so I want to make sure I don't stretch the split part and give a bad measurement. And measure the inside diameter again. I'm recording these numbers as millimeters. And then measure the diameter of the material for O-ring number 2. These O-rings came off a fuel filter. There was one for the fuel filter on each end, so there was 2, and then there was another one for a piece of tube that ran to a flex fuel sensor. So you want to get the numbers as close as you can. Then after you have the numbers, what you want to do next is get a table to look up the standard sizes. I've written some of the standard sizes down for some of the O-rings that I have in my sets, or one of my sets. But there's a more comprehensive table that can be found from O-ring suppliers. So you're going to try to get the numbers as close as possible to the numbers that you just measured. So I'm trying to locate the numbers that are pretty close so I can identify a standard size that fits. There's a possibility it's a non-standard size. It could, in fact, these are non-metric O-rings. It could be a metric size also. So these are the standard sizes for these O-rings. For SAE sizing. As I said, they could be metric also. So for O-ring number 2, I'm trying to find the dimensions that are similar to the one I measured. Now for the standard sizes, there is an identifier that goes along with it. In this case, my O-ring number 2, the identifier is 109. For O-ring number 1, it's a 110 identifier, and that can be found in an O-ring table for standard sizes, for SAE standard sizes. And in this case, I have to be careful with the material because I'm running a material or a fluid that's known to be damaging to the typical Buna or rubber O-rings. So there's an exposure to ethanol for this one. So that requires a O-ring for exposure for harsher chemicals. So in this case, a fluorinated O-ring or PTFE or Viton material. And the durometer on this, I hadn't written the durometer down. They're typically around 70. For high pressure situations, you'd have a harder O-ring, and for low pressure, you'd have a softer O-ring. And this is a configuration of how an O-ring is supposed to seal. The blue is a fluid, the black is the O-ring. And that's the basic configuration that an O-ring is meant to seal against.